Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasti Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Great Srimad Bhagavatam and Govardhana, chapter 22, verse 1. Sri Sukha Uvacha,
Sri Sukha Uvacha,
Mitrayuscha Divodasa,
Mitrayuscha Divodasa,
Shravanastatsutho Nirma,
Shravanastatsutho Nirma,
Sudasa Sahadevotra,
Sudasa Sahadevotra,
Somano Jantu Janat,
Somano Jantu Janat, Sri Sukha Uvacha, Mitrayuscha Divodasa, Shravanastatsutho Nirma, Sudasa Sahadevotra, Somago Jantu Janat, Sri Sukha Uvacha, Mitrayuscha Divodasa,
Mitrayuscha Divodasa,
Shravanastatsutho Nirma,
Shravanastatsutho Nirma,
Sudasa Sahadevota, Somago Jantu Janmakru, Sri Sukha Uvacha, Mitrayuscha Divodasa, Shravanastatsutho Nirma, Sudasa Sahadevota, Somago Jantu Janmakru.
Sri Sukha Uvacha,
Sri Sukha Uvacha,
Sri Sukadeva Goswami says,
Sri Sukadeva Goswami says,
Mitrayo, and Divodasa was born from Divodasa, son of Mitrayo, O king, Sudasa, Sahadeva, the father of Jantu. Translation: Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, the son of Divodasa was Mitrayo, and from Mitrayo came 4 sons named Shravana, Sudasa, Sahadeva, and Samaka. Samaka was the father of Jantu. Samaka had 100 sons, of whom the youngest was Krishnaka. From Krishnaka was born King Drupada, who was upward in all supremacy. From Maharaj Drupada, Draupadi was born. Maharaj Drupada also had many sons headed by Drishtadyumna. From Drishtadyumna came a son named Drishtaketu. All these personalities are known as descendants of Brahmayama Asma, or as the dynasty of Panchala. Another son of Ajamita was known as Riksha. From Riksha came a son named Samvarna, and from Samvarna, through the womb of his wife Kapati, the daughter of the sun god king Kuru, the king of Kuru, etc. Kuru had 4 sons, Parishi, Sudan, and Nishra. From Sudan, Suhotra was born, and from Suhotra, from Chavana, Kriti was born. The son of Kriti was Upari Charavasu, and among his sons, headed by Brihadrata, were Kusama, Matsya, Pratyahara, and Chetipa. All the sons of Upari Charavasu became rulers of the Chedi state. From Brihadrata, Kusara was born from Kusara, Rishabha, Satyajita. The son of Chitrapita was Pushpavan, and the son of Pushpavan was Shahu. Through the womb of another wife, Brihadrata begot 2 halves of the son. When the mother saw these 2 halves, she rejected them, and later, as she named Jara, playfully joined them and said, "Come to life, come to life." Thus the son named Jarasandha was born. From Jarasandha came a son named Sahadev, from Sahadev, Somapi, from Somapi, Shukasrava. The son of Kuru called Parishi had no sons, but the son of Kuru called Jambu had a son named Surata. From Surata came a son named Vidurata, from whom Sarvabhauma was born. From Sarvabhauma came Jayasena, from Jayasena Radhika, and from Radhika Ayutayu. From Ayutayu came a son named Akrodana, and his son was Deva Titi. The son of Deva Titi was Riksha, the son of Riksha was Dilipa, and the son of Dilipa was Prakipa. The sons of Dilipa were Deva, Santanu, and Ambika. Devaki left the kingdom of his father and went to the forest, and therefore Santanu became the king. Santanu, who in his previous birth was known as Mahabisha, had the ability to transform anyone from old age to youth simply by touching that person with his hands. Because the king was able to make everyone happy for sense gratification, primarily by the touch of his hand, his name was Santanu. Once, when there was no rainfall in the kingdom for 12 years, and the king consulted his learned Brahminical advisor, they said, "You are faulty for enjoying the prosperity of your elder brother. For the elevation of your kingdom at home, you should return the kingdom to him." Purpura cannot enjoy sovereignty to perform an Agnihotra yajna in the presence of one's elder brother, or else one becomes a usurper, known as Paritata. When the Brahmana said this, Maharaj Santanu went to the forest and requested his elder brother Deva to take charge of the kingdom, for his duty became to maintain subjects. Previously, however, Santanu's minister, Astavara, had instigated some Brahmanas to induce Devaki to transgress the instructions of Vedas and thus make himself unfit for the post of ruler. The Brahmanas deviated Devaki from the path of the Vedic principles, and therefore, when asked by Santanu, he did not agree to accept the post of ruler. On the contrary, he blasphemed the Vedic principles and therefore became fallen. Under the circumstances, Santanu again became the king, and Indra, being pleased, showered rains. Devaki later took to the path of mystic yoga to control his mind and senses, and went to the village named Kalapuram, where he is still living. After the dynasty of the moon god comes to an end in this age of Kali, Devaki, in the beginning of the next Satyuga, will re-establish the Soma dynasty in this world. From Balika, the brother of Santanu, came a son named Somadatta, who had 3 sons named Budi, Bodhisattva, and Sara. From Santanu, through the womb of his wife named Ganga, came Vishnu, who exalted self-realized devotee and learned scholar. Bhishmadev was the foremost of all warriors. When he defeated Lord Parshurama in a fight, Lord Parshurama was very satisfied with him for the scene of Santanu, and Satyavati, the daughter of fisherman Chitrangla, took birth. Of course, Satyavati was actually the daughter of Pari Chara Vasu, by the womb of a fisherwoman named Matsya Garbha. Later, Satyavati was raised by a fisherman. The fight between Parashurama and Vishmadev concerns 3 daughters of Kasiraj, Ambika, Ambalika, and Amba, who were forcibly abducted by Vishmadev, acting on behalf of his brother, Vichitravirya. Amba thought that Vishmadev would marry her and became attached to him. But Vishmadev refused to marry her before he had taken the vow of brahmacharya. Amba therefore approached Vishmadev's military spiritual master, Parshurama, and instructed Vishnu to marry her. Vishmadev refused, and therefore Parshurama fought with him to force him to accept her. But Parshurama was defeated, and he was pleased with his love. Chitrangla got up, who, Vichitravirya was the younger brother, was killed by Gandharva, who was also named Chitrangla. Satyavati, before her marriage to Santanu, gave birth to the master authority of the Vedas, Vyasadeva, known as Krishna Vaidpayana, who was begotten by Parasara Muni. From Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami was born, and from him I studied this great work of literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. The incarnation of Godhead Vyasadeva, rejecting his disciples, stated by Vaila, instructed Srimad Bhagavatam to me, because I was free from all material desires. After Ambika and Ambalika, the 2 daughters of Kasiraj, were taken by force, Vichitravirya married them, but because he was too attached to these two wives, he had a heart attack and died of tuberculosis. Badarayana, Sri Vyasadeva, following the order of his mother, Satyavati, he got 3 sons, 2 by the womb of Ambika and Ambalika, the 2 wives of his brother Vichitravirya, and the 3rd by Vichitravirya's maidservant. These sons were Parashara, Pandu, and Vidurai. Vichitravirya died of tuberculosis, and his wife Ambika and Ambalika had no issue. Therefore, after Vichitravirya's death, his mother, Satyavati, who was also the mother of Vyasadeva, asked Vyasadeva to beget children through the wives of Vichitravirya. In these days, the brother or the husband could also beget children through the womb of his sister-in-law. This was known as Deva Rena Sutopati. If the husband was somehow unable to beget children, his brother would do so through the womb of his sister-in-law. This Deva Rena Sutopati and the sacrifices of Aswamedha and Gomedha are forbidden in the age of Kali. Aswamedha, Gavalambam, Sannyasam, followed by Kirkam, and Deva Rena Sutopati, Kalau Pancha Divarchaya. In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. The offering of a horse in sacrifice, the offering of a cow in sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas, the offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his brother's wife, Brahma by Varta Purana. So, here again we have a continuation of the dynasty, and now we're coming to the more recent personalities, which who were present when the Battle of Kurukshetra took place. So we have persons like Drishtadyumna, Drupada, Draupadi, etc. So these more or less are contemporary with Krishna's appearance. So the Bhagavatam basically is the whole narration of dynasties from the beginning of the day of Brahma to the different Manvantaras has led up to the establishment of the 7th Manvantara, Manvantara Avatar, and Manvantara Manu. That is, Vaivasvata is the Manu, and the deity then is Mahadev. So, the 9th canto discusses the sin and destruction, Vaivasvata Manu. And then we get the main line of the Sun dynasty, and then we get the Moon dynasty coming up. And it's the Moon dynasty that we get Krishna. So, that is then the whole 10th canto deals with Krishna. So in other words, from the 3rd canto through the 9th canto, we have a whole discussion of history just leading up to the appearance of Krishna. But we should understand that Krishna's appearance is not really dependent upon these personalities, because these personalities are by and large simply vibhutis of the Lord. They cannot manifest the Lord, only the Lord can manifest himself. The Manus as vibhutis are actually jivas with material bodies, like the Devatas. So they have much less power than the Supreme Lord. They cannot really produce the Supreme Lord. The Lord favors certain persons in the material world. So he favors the Vaivasvata Manu, he favors his dynasties, he favors the Moon dynasty, he favors the others. Because in the other dynasty we find that Krishna appears. So finally when Krishna does appear, something special takes place. That is, the members of the outer dynasty are no longer material persons. They are spiritual persons with spiritual bodies. So the Yadus, by and large, are considered to be Nityasiddha, devotees of the Lord, of spiritual bodies. Vasudeva and Devaki have spiritual bodies. Nanda and Yashoda have spiritual bodies. So though it appears like they also appear in this family, they're completely different. So the Lord actually does not appear by material means at all. But he makes arrangements. So it appears like he is coming through born in a certain family, etc. this way, he gives auspiciousness to the members of that dynasty. So therefore, the members of the Moon dynasty and Vairasvata whole lineage become very auspicious by the appearance of Krishna. So, we should never think that because he's born in such a dynasty that he is also a material being, he's actually spiritual. So he does actually not depend on them. Rather, he gives a favor to them by appearing within the particular dynasty. So, the appearance of the Lord, of course, is explained in different ways. So we have in the 10th canto an explanation given by Sukadeva that how Vasudeva Devaki became fortunate to have Krishna as their son. It's described that for 3 births the Lord appeared as their son because of the wish of these 2 individuals. And again, it's described that Nanda and Yasoda became famous because became the father of Krishna, father and mother of Krishna. So their good fortunes previously, they also prayed for the Lord as their son, and therefore finally they got the Lord as their son because they were worshiping the Lord so much. But this actually is not really true in one sense. Because Nanda and Yasoda actually don't have to do any extra worship because they're eternally the parents of Krishna. Vasudeva and Devaki also are eternally the parents of Krishna, and no one takes their place. So it's not they have to do some sadhana, and eventually, by their sadhana, they become perfect, and then the Lord blesses them by becoming their son. They're eternally in that position. However, just to explain in another way for people with more material consciousness, these explanations are given of devotees doing sadhana and getting perfection and then having the Lord come as their son. It's also explained that actually even these previous persons are actually expansions. Drona and Dara are expansions from Yasoda. So in that sense, they're also spiritual. And when Nanda and Yasoda appear, they merge back into them. And then Krishna appears in this material world. So Krishna is eternal, and Yasoda and Nanda are actually eternal. So they don't get reborn in the material world because of sadhana and become perfect. Similarly, the whole of the Yadus who were present when Krishna was on the planet, they also are eternal devotees of the Supreme Lord. And in Dwarka and Mathura in the spiritual world, they're eternally related. So you have verses like Ugrasena, Udava, etc. Also, they're eternal. So not only Krishna, not only the parents of Krishna, but the whole, the Yadu dynasty present of Krishna, by and large, they're just the devotees also. So somehow they appeared when the Lord appeared. So they had spiritual lives. So the Lord appears in the material world not alone, but with his associates. And therefore, it's very appropriate that he appears within some dynasty or something like that. So he appears within the Yadu dynasty, the Yadu family, which is within the Moon dynasty, which is within this whole line from Vairasvata. So this way, he gives blessings to that whole dynasty along with his eternal associates by appearing within the family. So the Krishna appears in the material world. And he remains for 125 years, and then he disappears. And with him, all the associates also disappear. So all the others must disappear as well. So the Lord makes arrangement for all of this in his pastimes. So therefore, later in the Bhagavad Gita, we'll find a description of the not mean that they die, just as Krishna does not die. But he makes some arrangements so that Krishna gets shot by the hunter, etc., and then he seems to disappear like this. And the Yadus fight among each other and they kill each other. This is only an appearance in the material world, so that they appear as if they're part of a dynasty made up of material persons. But the real explanation is that actually the Yadus didn't die. They remained in Dwarka, and they're still there. So no one can see them, but they're eternally residing in Dwarka. And Krishna's also there. And those bodies that disappeared, yes, some bodies disappeared. And then what happened was that along with the Yadus, the Devatas also appeared in the bodies of the Yadus, because the Lord told Brahma that the Devatas should also appear in the system of pastimes, and they also got an opportunity to associate with the Lord. So they descended among the Yadus. And then when the fight took place and they died, then they returned to Svargaloka. So in this way the Devatas gave up those bodies and went to Svargaloka, and the real Yadus, the eternal associates of God, they stayed to work. And they continued to pass time with Krishna. And Krishna gave up that body, but actually he remains eternally in Dwarka also. So, therefore, there is no real disappearance of the Lord or death of the Lord as such. There's only a disappearance of the Lord from our material lives. So on the one hand, the devotee can understand the nature of the Supreme Lord and how he is eternal. The materialists will accept this as proof that Krishna is material and his whole dynasty is material, because they all die. Krishna left a material body there, and the others left material bodies there on the battlefield, they killed each other, etc. It looks like material. They were material. So this is a trick to fool the materialists. And then they'll think, okay, Krishna's material after all. Perhaps these persons like Shishupal thought, oh, Krishna's a material person. So therefore, materialists therefore think that the Lord is material. Then they don't have any worry. But the devotee will understand that Krishna is actually spiritual. And this was just an appearance, an arrangement made by the Lord to disappear and fool the materialists. And at the same time, stay eternally and have pastimes with the devotees. So therefore, Krishna has eternal pastimes in Dwarka. And though it seemed that Dwarka disappeared, it said that Dwarka was covered by the ocean, etc. That again is an arrangement by the Supreme Lord. Well, actually, Dwarka is eternal. It cannot be destroyed. It is an expansion of the spiritual world within the material world. So that Dwarka continues. And Krishna and the Yadus continue to do pastimes there, just as described in the Bhagavatam in the later part of the 10th canto. He's there with all of the others and their sons, etc., queens, pastimes. And the same goes for Vrindavan. It's also eternal. And Krishna eternally performs his pastimes there. So it appeared that he disappeared. There is a story in the Padma Purana that Krishna returned to Raja after killing Dhammamakra. And that he met the people of Raja under the Southern Power, people, the Mokis, etc., and the pastimes. And then after a few months, they all got into a big chariot and disappeared in the sky. So this is another appearance that he took them to this star god or the spiritual world, whatever. But then Krishna also went back to Dwarka again, continued his pastimes after killing Dhammamakra, etc., and this Dwarka for Krishna remained in Vrindavan with all the Vrajavasis, but invisible. And there he continues to perform his pastimes. So one form remains eternally in Vrindavan with the Vrajavasis performing pastimes. Another form went back to Dwarka and continued pastimes there until Krishna then disappeared in Prabhas. And another form, Krishna went out in the spiritual world. This is considered to be the Aishwarya aspect of the Lord. He was showing great power, so this was the Aishwarya of the Lord, that form of the Lord. So the Madhurya aspect stayed in Vrindavan, the Aishwarya aspect of Krishna went to Aishwarya Goloka, and one form went to Mathura, to Dwarka, and continued pastimes, and then disappeared. And then Krishna eternally remains in Dwarka. One ascended up again into the spiritual world of the chariot again. So simultaneously Krishna is performing aprakat pastimes, invisible pastimes in Dwarka and in Vrindavan. So in other words, he actually never disappears, but it's from our eyes, that's right. So this is called the aprakat pastimes, or invisible pastimes, invisible to our eyes. And when they're visible to everybody, it's called the prakat pastimes. However, even though they are visible to everybody, including the materialists, the materialists cannot appreciate the spiritual aspect of the Lord because you need spiritual eyes to see the spiritual form of the Lord. So they don't really appreciate Krishna. So when they see Krishna perform his pastimes, they do not see Satchidananda form of Krishna. They think, oh, he's a pretender, he's a material person, he's a coward, pretending he's a kshatriya, etc. This is all they see. So, yes, they can see him, but they don't see the real Krishna. The devotees, on the other hand, those who are qualified, can see that spiritual form in the material world. So, Krishna appears once in the day of Brahma in this particular lineage to reveal to the qualified devotees that he is the highest form, that is Swayambhava. In other words, he gives proof to the devotees who are qualified that, of course, he has considered devotees that are eternally qualified, and to help the devotees in the material world who are aspiring for Krishna. Then he gives proof to them, and they can participate in his pastimes and see him, etc. So this is a rare opportunity that Krishna gives to the people of the material world. He shows his ultimate form and his ultimate pastimes to the people of the material world. And the devotees appreciate this. And they qualify, and they join into the pastimes at that time. So it's described that there were different types of qualified people who were not interested in this. So of course we have the Shrutis. The Upanishads basically personified. They kept praying that we also want to be gopis. So finally they became gopis. And they participated in the pastime. So they were sadhakas and they got perfection. And then the famous example is given of the sage Dandakaranya, who previously saw, that was 16 million years before, the 24th cycle when Rama appeared. The sages of Dandakaranya saw Rama, and then they thought, oh, we would like to have a conjugal relationship with the Supreme Lord. It's not possible with Rama. So when Krishna came, then they could fulfill that desire to have conjugal rasa with Krishna. So the sages of Dandakaranya also. And then there were certain women in Svargaloka and other places that they also became qualified devotees. This means that in Svargaloka there are also some persons who are aspiring to be consorts of the Lord. So they became devotees also. And it said even Gayatri Devi became a Gopal. So, in this way, we have various persons that can qualify and they do their sadhana. Eventually, they join in the pastimes of Krishna and they can participate in Rasalila, etc. So in this way, when Krishna manifests his pastimes on the Earth planet, then those who are qualified are able to join those pastimes. And once they join those pastimes, it becomes eternal. And then they join in the spiritual world, and eternally they're in the spiritual world, participating in the pastimes with Krishna. So therefore, Krishna manifests himself in this material world through this dynasty, and then he enables those who are the sadhana to eventually participate with him, and then they eternally exist with the Lord in the spiritual world. So this gives a great opportunity to the sadhakas.
Maharaj, we see that Krishna in the Golok Vrindavan is Nitya Kishora. He's always in his 16th form. So when Yashoda Maharani is also eternally situated there, how does she have that pastimes of the Vatsalya of Krishna?
It's explained that in the spiritual world, yes, Krishna is eternally in the Kaishor, he doesn't grow. He's only one age. The Kaishor age was considered to be the most beautiful. But the nature of the Kaishor age is that those who are in different rasas can still appreciate Krishna in other forms. So in other words, Mother Yasoda can still appreciate Krishna in his Balya form, and the Sakas can appreciate Krishna in his Goganda form. So in other words, the Kaishar age contains the other ages within it somehow for the experiences of the rasas. So they can still experience Krishna. An example of that is given in Kurukshetra, when Nanda and Yasoda met Krishna. And he was very old then. But of course he was still Kaishor, because he never was beyond Kaishor age. So when they saw him immediately, they saw him as a small child. And Mother Yasoda, from her breast, milk began to flow. And they put Krishna and Yasoda on their laps like small children. So it's still treated them as small children, even in the Kaishor age. So that's the nature of the Kaishor age. Those who were in Vatsalya could still see him as a young child, and those in Sunday could see him as their friend. Vasan, no, they're in Dwarka and Mathura.
So how did Devaki and Vasudev, how did they see the form of Krishna? Did they see the form of Krishna as Krishna in Golok, or did they see the form of Krishna in slightly different? Because it also says that Krishna doesn't step out of Vrindavan.
So, yeah, well, obviously, Vasudeva and Devaki are in Mathura and Dwarka in the spiritual world, and Krishna resides there. So they see him in that form. And we see Krishna when he is 11-point-something years old, then he goes to Mathura, and later on he goes to Dwarka. But he doesn't age beyond Kaishor. So generally they see him in the spiritual world in the Kaishor form. But then he also is married in Dwarka, married form. And when he's in Mathura, then he's unmarried, but he's still, he gets his Upanayana, and he gets Upanayana and separate education. So they also see him as a Kaishor form.
And also personalities like Sandipani Muni and all of them are eternally there.
Yeah, well, that's why it is difficult to appreciate the pastimes of Krishna, and it's very, very, you say, he is the highest form as well. So, certain aspects of his pastimes are more difficult to understand for a person in the material world. But ultimately, as I said, these relationships are eternal. So there's no question of anything irreligious or whatever, because the gopis are eternally the consorts of the Lord. So there's nothing irregular about Krishna with the gopis at all. So the appearance of irregularity is there from a material point of view in the material world only. But that's only understood by devotees, not by materialists. And therefore, the materialists cannot appreciate the pastimes of Krishna.
ग्रंथराज श्री श्रीमद् भागवत